The desert sun bled into the wooden town of Dustvale, painting long shadows that stretched across cracked boards and silent faces. The air was thick with tension, the kind that sticks to your skin and makes every heartbeat sound like a drum in a funeral march. A crowd had gathered in the center square, men with dust on their boots, guns at their hips and greed in their eyes. They stood around a makeshift platform where a single figure knelt, bound and defiant. She was young, her face streaked with dirt and blood, her dark hair tangled with sweat and dust. Even bruised and beaten, her spirit burned bright behind her eyes. She wasn't afraid. Not really. Anger pulsed through her veins stronger than fear ever could. Her name was Ayanna, and she was the last surviving daughter of the Raven Creek tribe. The sheriff stood beside her, twirling a rope in his hands as if her life were nothing but a game. "This one caused a fair bit of trouble," he sneered. "Set fire to the supply wagons, cut down 2 of my men. She's wild, stubborn, and she don't take kindly to orders. But maybe one of you gentlemen's got the patience to tame her spirit." The crowd murmured. Someone laughed. Ayanna spat into the dust. "You'll regret this," she hissed, her voice raw but steady. "I won't obey." The sheriff smirked. "We'll see about that." From the edge of the crowd, Elias Boone watched in silence. He was a rancher, tall, quiet, eyes like a storm trapped behind calm skies. He'd ridden into town that morning for supplies, not salvation, but something about the girl's defiance rooted him to the spot. She reminded him of the fire his wife once carried before fever took her away 3 winters ago. $2, someone barked, breaking his thoughts. "I'll take her off your hands." Ayanna's jaw clenched and the crowd murmured approval. The sheriff nodded, counting imaginary coins in his mind. That was when Elias spoke. "Make it $2 and a horse feed," he said quietly. The sheriff turned. "You want her?" Elias met Ayanna's eyes, steady, calm, unflinching. "No, I want her free." The sheriff laughed, half mocking, half curious. "Then pay up, cowboy." Elias pulled 2 silver coins from his vest and tossed them to the sheriff. "She walks." The crowd booed. "You gone soft, Boone?" someone shouted. But Elias ignored them. He stepped forward and cut the rope binding Ayanna's wrists. She flinched as the hemp fell away, her arms trembling with exhaustion. For a moment they just stood there, 2 strangers bound by something neither could name. She didn't thank him. Instead she rose slowly, eyes sharp as obsidian. "I don't need your pity," she said. "You paid to play the hero, but I don't belong to you." "I didn't say you did," Elias replied softly. "But you're bleeding. You won't make it 10 miles on foot." She hesitated. Every instinct told her to run, yet something in his tone, steady, tired, honest, made her pause. "Why?" she finally asked. "Why would you help me?" Elias looked toward the horizon. "Because I once needed saving too." The crowd began to disperse, muttering curses about wasted coin and foolish men. Dust swirled as Elias led his horse toward the stable. He didn't look back to see if she followed, but she did. Not because she trusted him, but because she had nowhere else to go. They rode in silence across the barren plain, the sun dipping low behind red hills. Ayanna's wounds stung with every step, but she refused to show weakness. Elias offered her water. She refused it. He offered a blanket. She ignored it. The man's patience amazed her. Most would have demanded gratitude or obedience by now. When they reached a small ranch nestled between the hills, dusk had fallen. Smoke curled from a chimney, and a few tired horses grazed near a half-broken fence. Elias dismounted, tied the reins, and turned to her. "You can stay in the barn," he said simply. "I'll bring food and bandages." Ayanna narrowed her eyes. "And if I don't?" He shrugged. "Then you'll freeze. Your choice." For a moment she wanted to defy him just to prove she could, but the chill of the desert night cut deeper than pride. She followed him into the barn, where hay and leather filled the air. Elias handed her a clean cloth, some water, and a bowl of stew. "Eat," he said, then left her alone. That night sleep refused to come. The moonlight carved silver lines across the barn floor as Ayanna stared at the stars through a gap in the roof. Every sound made her tense, the creak of wood, the rustle of wind. She'd spent weeks hiding, running, fighting men who wanted to cage her tribe's spirit. This cowboy was different, but difference didn't mean safety. Outside, Elias sat on his porch, sipping coffee gone cold. His hands trembled as he stared into the dark. He'd seen too much death. His wife, his child, the land burned by greed. Maybe saving the girl was a fool's way to ease a guilty heart. Still, he couldn't shake the feeling that fate had brought her here for a reason. Morning came slow and gold. Ayanna was already awake, standing by the corral when Elias came out. She wore one of his old shirts, her wounds freshly wrapped. "You didn't have to fix the fence," he said quietly. "I didn't do it for you," she replied. He smiled faintly. "Didn't think you did." She studied him for a moment, searching for deceit, but found none. "What do you want from me, cowboy?" Elias leaned on the rail. "Nothing. Just peace." Her voice hardened. "Peace doesn't come to men who live between tribes and towns." He looked up, the sun lighting the lines on his face. "Then maybe I'll make my own kind." Something in his tone struck her, a simple truth wrapped in sorrow. Before she could answer, a distant rumble echoed across the plains. Dust rose on the horizon, riders, 6 or 7 at least. Ayanna's heart froze. "They found me." Elias turned. "Who?" "The sheriff's men. They want me dead for what I did." Elias's hand went to his revolver. "Then they'll have to go through me first." She stared at him, disbelief flashing in her eyes. "Why risk your life for me?" He met her gaze, steady and sure. "Because freedom shouldn't cost $2. The riders came hard and fast, guns glinting in the sun. Elias loaded his rifle, calm as ever. "Get inside," he ordered. Ayanna shook her head. "No, I've been running too long." She grabbed a bow from the wall, his late wife's still strung tight. Their eyes met for a heartbeat. In that moment, 2 broken souls stood together, not as captor and captive, but as equals. When the first bullet cracked the air, Elias fired back. Ayanna's arrow flew beside his shot, striking true. Dust filled the air. Horses screamed, men fell. When the smoke cleared, the last rider turned tail and fled toward town. Elias leaned against the post, chest heaving. Ayanna walked over, lowering her bow. "You fight well," he said between breaths. "So do you," she replied. "But they'll come again," he nodded. "Then we'll be ready." The wind howled across the plains, carrying the scent of gunpowder and freedom. Ayanna looked toward the horizon, her eyes softening just a little. Maybe I was wrong about you, cowboy." Elias smiled faintly. Wouldn't be the first time someone said that. She let out a quiet laugh, her first in months. "You'll regret this," she said again, though her tone carried a trace of warmth now. "Maybe," he said, "but not today." The sun dipped behind the hills, and for the first time in a long while, both of them stood still, not as enemies, not as strangers, but as the beginning of something neither expected, hope. The wind howled through Dust Vale that night, carrying whispers of vengeance. The horizon was quiet now, but both Elias and Ayanna knew peace in the west never lasted long. Inside the dimly lit barn, the smell of gunpowder still clung to their clothes. The horses shifted nervously, hooves clacking against wooden boards. Ayanna sat by the lantern, cleaning her bowstring, her hands trembling only slightly. Elias stood near the door, rifle across his lap, his gaze fixed on the black horizon. "They'll be back," he said quietly. "I know," she replied. "You could still run," he said after a pause. "I won't stop you," she looked up sharply. "Run where? There's nowhere left. They burned my village, Elias. My people are gone." The name hung between them, the first time she'd spoken it aloud. It surprised them both. Elias turned toward her, his face soft in the lantern light. "Then stay. Help me fight." Ayanna's dark eyes glinted with both fury and sorrow. "You don't understand. These men, they don't stop. They'll burn everything just to prove they can." "Then we make sure they regret it," Elias said, chambering a bullet for the first time in years. Ayanna smiled, not out of joy but defiance. By dawn, the air had turned cold and still. The earth smelled of dust and iron. Elias saddled his horse while Ayanna checked the traps she'd set around the ranch perimeter. They spoke little, yet each move flowed with silent understanding. As the first streaks of gold touched the land, a figure appeared on the ridge. Sheriff Murdoch, his badge glinting like a knife. Behind him 5 riders approached, dust clouds trailing their horses like smoke from a fire. "Boone!" The sheriff's voice echoed across the plain. "You've made a damn fool mistake harboring that savage." Elias stepped forward, his hat low, his rifle steady. "She's no savage. She's a woman you wronged," the sheriff sneered. "That girl murdered 2 of my deputies. I aim to see justice done." "Justice?" Ayanna shouted from behind Elias. "You call murder justice? You killed my people for their land." The sheriff's grin faltered. "You best keep that mouth shut, girl, Before he could finish, Elias fired a warning shot. The bullet struck the ground at the sheriff's feet, sending dust into his face. "You'll turn around," Elias said evenly, "and you'll tell your men to do the same." The sheriff's eyes darkened. "You're risking everything for her, Boone. Your ranch, your name, your life. Maybe that's all worth risking," Elias said, "if it means standing for what's right." The first shot came from the ridge. Then chaos erupted. Bullets tore through the morning air, slamming into fences and dusting the ground. Ayanna dove behind a trough, loosing an arrow that found its mark in a rider's shoulder. Elias fired back with precision, born of years on the frontier. For a moment the land became a storm of dust and fury. Gunfire, smoke, shouts, hooves. Elias moved with calm purpose, guarding the barn, reloading between shots. Ayanna's arrows whistled through the air, each one a message of vengeance for her fallen kin. The sheriff's men began to fall back, retreating behind a wagon. "Boone!" Murdoch roared. "You can't win this." Elias took cover behind a post, sweat and blood mixing on his brow. "I don't need to win," he shouted back. "Just need to outlast you." As he peeked out, a bullet grazed his shoulder. He grunted, dropped to one knee. Ayanna ran to him, pulling him into cover. "You're hit." "It's not bad," he muttered, though his shirt was already darkening. "You fool," she hissed. "You could have stayed out of this." He smiled weakly. "Guess I got tired of doing nothing." Ayanna looked at him for a long moment. The anger in her eyes softened into something she hadn't felt in a long time. Trust. When the smoke cleared, the sheriff's men lay scattered. Only Murdoch remained, crouched behind his horse, reloading. Elias rose, gun steady. "End it, Murdoch. Walk away." The sheriff spat. "You ain't got the guts." Ayanna stepped out from behind the trough, bow drawn, arrow aimed. Her voice was steady. "Try me." Murdoch hesitated, eyes flicking between the 2 of them. For the first time he saw not a wounded girl or a broken rancher, but something stronger, united by purpose. He dropped his revolver. "You'll both hang for this," he growled, climbing onto his horse. "Not today," Elias said. The sheriff rode off, dust swallowing him whole. The land fell silent again, save for the whistle of wind through dry grass. Hours passed. Elias sat on the porch, his shoulder bandaged, watching the horizon. Ayanna stood beside him, quiet. "They'll come again," she said softly. "Then we'll keep fighting," he replied. She looked at him. "You could have left me there. Why didn't you?" He sighed, gaze lost in the sunset. "Because when I saw you kneeling on that platform, I saw myself. I've been chained by guilt for years. I guess I just wanted to break one more set of chains." She smiled faintly. "You'll regret this, you know." He chuckled. "Maybe, but I don't think I will." They sat in silence, the light fading from gold to red to shadow. The ranch that had once been filled with emptiness now carried the sound of life, a heartbeat of purpose in a dying land. Weeks passed. The sheriff never returned. Word spread across Dustvale about the rancher who stood against corruption and the native woman who fought beside him. Some called them outlaws, others whispered legend. Ayanna began to rebuild, not just her tribe's memory, but her spirit. She planted wild sage where ashes once lay, teaching Elias her people's ways of the land. He, in turn, showed her how to ride free without fear, how to rebuild fences and laughter alike. They were not lovers, not quite friends, something deeper, born of shared scars and stubborn hearts. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the ridge, Elias turned to her. "What'll you do now?" Ayana looked toward the horizon. "Keep living. Keep fighting for the ones who can't." He nodded slowly. "Then I reckon I'll do the same," she smiled. "Maybe you're more warrior than Cowboy after all." He tipped his hat. "Maybe you're more heart than fire." They laughed softly, the sound carrying over the quiet hills. For once, the West didn't feel so lonely. The final shot fades with the image of them standing side by side as dusk settles, their silhouettes framed against a dying sun. Two souls who refused to kneel, who learned that freedom is not given, it's taken, and sometimes it's shared.